You all get ready for this phenomenal conversation that I have with Brother Masood Abdul-Haqq. He is an author, an executive. All right. He is also a speaker, and he is a head of operations of the pediatric clinic, two of them, by the way, that him and his wife run together. All right. So I want you all to make sure you have your notebooks, pens, or pencils ready because the nuggets are going to be dropped all through this episode. And just to pre warn you all, I'm not going to be shown through the episode. You can definitely hear me, but you can definitely see Masood throughout the podcast. All right. So stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Seisha. And with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation, as to why there are low levels of literacy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together. Oh my goodness, you guys. I am just so excited. I have an awesome guest on my show. But before I introduce him, I have to say a couple things. Number one, I want to thank all of my old head listeners who've been rocking with me since day one, since I started Real Reading Talk. So I appreciate you guys tremendously. And my newbies, you guys, those of you who either stumbled across the podcast on the different podcast platforms, or if someone had sent the podcast to you, I thank you again for checking me out. And I hope not only do you gain much benefit, I hope that you enjoy it. Because when I talk to my guests, I don't like to call it an interview. It's a conversation. Okay. So it's a chill vibe. I'm a chill person. I like to have fun as well as talk about the serious issues that we are dealing with in our community. And even though we did not start these things, it's still our responsibility to dive in and make sure that we're doing everything that we can to solve the problems and issues that we are faced with in the Black community. So, with all that being said, let me say this. Happy birthday to my dad, George Daryl Brazil. All right. So I got to give a shout out to my daddy. So I hope he is enjoying himself. He is going to New Orleans today to visit my sister. So that's pretty dope. So I just had to say happy birthday to him, of course. All right. And so now I am ready to introduce this awesome, phenomenal brother that actually I just met through social media. A lot of us, meeting folks through social media, we, skim through pages and we see different things. We're like, oh, wow, okay. Oh, man, this person, they doing real great things. All right, let me connect to that person. So at least that's what I do. You know what I'm saying? So, and this brother here, he is an author, an executive, a speaker, husband, father, just a dope all around brother, Black Muslim brother. And his name is Brother Masood Abdul-Haqq. So I want everyone to welcome him to Real Reading Talk. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Seisha. And I've got to say, similar to you. Well, first of all, happy birthday to Pops. Definitely got to show love to one of your giants. And similar to you, just browsing your page and seeing, the emphasis that you place on reading and the different ways that you get people to engage and think about, some of the issues that plague our communities as it pertains to a lack of reading. I definitely your page jumped out at me as well, and when you were interested in the book and when you were interested in me and coming on, I jumped at that opportunity because it's so necessary, and I'm honored to be here.
That's what's up. Well, I definitely, again, I appreciate you immensely for, agreeing to come on into the show. So that is so dope. So first, before we get into the book, people want to know a little bit about you, your background. So tell
Yeah.
everybody about Brother Masood.
Yeah, so I I was born Muslim in Fort Worth, Texas, in the early '80s, and like a lot of people, kind of like me, born into families that everybody's growing at the same time. You know, conversion to Islam um, is something that makes somebody recalibrate their faith, recalibrate their entire uh, way of life in the middle of life, and it's not easy. So you know, I'm the son of two converts. They were trying to figure themselves out at the same time. They're trying to raise a new family. It was a bunch of us, and we ended up traveling a little bit from Texas to New Mexico. So I got an experience around you know uh, all different types of people. We had Jewish, Muslims, Spanish, Hispanic, white, former hippies. So I became uh, I was exposed to a lot. You know, a lot more than just a lot of people who would have just been born on the same block or just stayed in the same city. I was exposed to different cultures, and like anybody else who's Muslim, you know, we were exposed to different cuisines and foods and stuff like that. So even though we may not have been well to do, you know, we were definitely worldly, and we had a diverse palate for our food, for our our interests, what we like to read, what we like to watch, all that sort of thing was shaped by that upbringing. And finally, when I was about 9 or 10, my family moved to Atlanta, and we grew up in the Imam Jamil Alameen's community in Atlanta. And in the early '90s, that community was kind of it was like an oasis in a desert, right? In the sense that that neighborhood was extremely violent. Drug Drugs were everywhere. Prostitution, just anything you could think of, it was happening in that community. But Muslim kids were somewhat exempt from it. You know, if we allowed the protection that was available to us to protect us, then we got a free pass. You know, so we weren't subjected to some of the same ills and some of the same temptations as some of our peers. So a lot of my writings kind of center around those things early, because there's not a lot of people who are able to articulate it or who've been willing to. And I think that those stories are very important to tell. They are part of our history, and when you have a gift of writing, I feel like it's a responsibility to preserve things that have happened, and help to inform people in the future of some of the trials that we've been through, what worked, what didn't work, so that they can get to their good a lot quicker, with a lot less pitfalls and minds in the way, so to speak. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
No,
kind
it, man, listen, I told you, look, this is a chill vibe again, conversation, and I want, everything to be authentic, because that's why it's called real reading talk, right? In the
right.
community we say, give me that real talk, no sugarcoating, no chaser. And
Hmm.
that's what I want, you know what I'm saying? Because that's how we grow, right? We grow when people
Right.
see the authenticity, when they hear about the things, the trials, the tribulations, the vulnerabilities, the times you were scared, you know what I'm saying? The whatever issues, you know what I'm saying? So, and that's exactly what, our audience deserves. But what I
For
what I
sure.
wanted to say is it was crazy because and I'm reading your book. And before we get like really kind of get into it, I did have a few more questions to ask you in terms of just culture around reading and those types of things. But I just wanted to
Of
say a
course.
couple of things, like you being in the West End of Atlanta. Because see, I'm a convert, myself. I became Muslim in,
Hmm.
in '93. Actually, inshallah, February 14th will be my 30th
Okay.
year. Right,
Okay.
being Muslim. So it's like, wow, man. And I remember, when I first became Muslim, it was like, that was all like, Imam Jamil Alameen. And,
Wait, were you
just,
in Atlanta?
no, I'm from
Oh, okay.
Cleveland.
Oh, you
Yeah.
heard about it. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Because my Imam, the one who gave me Shahada, Imam Mutawaf, in fact.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know
Masjid
Mom.
Iram. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Uh-huh.
where I was, quote unquote, raised as a Muslim. I was there for almost 20 years. And
Okay.
so an integral part of the community, all of that. So it was like ingrained, in us in terms of just having the, the attitude of, yeah, look, you Muslim, you know what I'm saying? And, you got a better way of life now. And, all of these different
Right.
things that we heard. So a lot of stuff
Right.
I was reading your book, I'm just like, oh my God. So, just really, really relatable. So I really was feeling that. And then the aspect of you, when you were talking about, as far as, with your parents, raising you, you said it was a lot of you all. And I think about, when I was married, me and my ex-husband, my first husband, we had one child. And then my ex-husband, my second husband, we were married for almost 17 years and we had 6 kids together.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I know about, what I'm
Populate
saying?
this thing. Populate this
Exactly,
thing.
right? So, it's like, you know what I mean? So I can definitely relate in terms of just all of those trials and tribulations, especially when you are Black and you become Muslim. And I really feel like a lot of us were trying to find who we really were, and who we really should be,
Mm-hmm.
being Black, being Muslim, a lot of different. And for those of you, I want to say this for my listeners, because I have people who listen who aren't Muslim, right?
Right.
So, just giving you all the understanding, it's like, a lot of us in the Black community who are converts, some people say revert, I'm saying, going back to, your, original, what I'm saying, state submission to one God, because that's all Islam means. A lot of us went through a lot of transformations. And I think that happens with anything, you changing from one way of life to a whole nother way of life. And especially if you're in a society that's, a lot of the different things that you were raised with, you have a lot of stuff where you had to kind of get rid of, you know what I'm saying? You had to
Right.
change your mentality about. I'll use something, something as basic as not eating pork, you know, that's something that in the Black community, you think about it, you raised by, your old school, grandmas and your moms and all that. What you mean you ain't eating no pork? You know what I'm saying? You was raised wrong.
Right.
You,
They
I
look
said
at
it's
that
not
like it's
all
an
right.
indictment on the way they raised you. Like, what was
Exactly.
wrong with what was wrong with what I fed you? What was wrong with going to church? So having, understanding that that's a huge shift, a whole huge mindset
Yes.
to have to change on the fly like that. Like your faith is the core of who you are. What you believe is the core of who you are. So, being able to have the fortitude to change horses midstream, so to speak, I think is a fascinating concept. And that's why I kind of, I say that we might be the youngest demographic on earth in terms of, our culture, what we believe, what we eat, all that sort of thing, like our vernacular, our nomenclature, everything is still forming. It's still brand new. First, second, third generation. Other people can point to their traditions, centuries and centuries, millennia, even some people, and we're able to go back to the 70s or the 60s, in some cases the 90s. So
Mhm.
it's a brand new group. It's a brand new demographic. And so we're all trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure out what works, what didn't work. We're sacrificing certain generations, trying to experiment with one thing. And then we say, okay, that didn't work. So let's try this differently with the next generation. So that's to me why it's so important, as a person who's, kind of grew up analog, but kind of turned into digital, like I was early teens when the internet hit. So we were at a perfect age to be able to relate to those who didn't have the technology aspect, but also, we grew up with technology as well. So we can speak to both. And I feel like we have to be somewhat of a bridge. And that's why I was like, I've got to speak to some of these things, but I'm a storyteller by nature. So I wasn't just going to be hyper academic about it and like, have all this research. I was blessed with good memory and good experiences, a variety of experiences. And I didn't want it to just be about me. So it was definitely about gratitude and saying, hey, I picked this up from this person and for that person. And that's what we have to do. If there's a lack of resources, we've got to latch on to the resources that are there, and then now it's time to share it. So that's what that was about.
That's what's up. And that's it. That's exactly, my takeaway from your book. I mean, just phenomenal in so many ways. And what I wanted to ask you though, in terms of, your reading habits, as growing up, right? So did you grow up in a household where you saw your parents reading? Was that something that was demanded upon, your family?
Absolutely. So first of all, we just didn't do TV like that. The TV just there was very select times when we were able to watch TV, and in between, like we had a full Encyclopedia Britannica right there in the house, and you can only be bored for so long, like saying that, oh, there's nothing to do. Eventually you're going to go outside and play, you're going to come inside, you're going to find something on the shelf. And my mom, she made sure that we were always in the library. There's a lot of reasons why. Number one, the library had air conditioning, right? Like, so
Okay, okay.
the books are free. You can sit there, you can read all day. Nobody's gonna tell you to leave. And so when you don't have a lot of means, that public library was huge for us. So we
Mm,
stayed at the library. Even the where we learned to swim and things like that. The pool there was attached to a library. So we'd go and learn how to swim, and then head over to the library. And I used to get into these series. I used to love, I kind of mentioned some of them. I loved Encyclopedia Brown and Hardy Boys. And then later on, I got into like Rex Stout mysteries um, about Nero Wolfe. So I used to really love those. They're like old school detective novels about this, I don't know, big fat detective
got you.
and his assistant. So I used to get into those series, and then I just move on to the next one, the next one, the next one, and it was important for my mother that we had that because um, it was free, and it opened us up, it opened our minds up to new worlds. Um, and I mean, we were never censored in terms of what we couldn't read. I was into basketball and stuff like that, so she would steer me toward like, okay, so here's some basketball books, and I got an encyclopedia about the NBA, and then I became like a stat nerd, just like reading every single stat. So it was definitely a huge part of growing up, and you could see it reflected. And I always say like reading is writing fuel. Like if you don't read, then it's going to be harder for you to write because you've got such a narrow view. Only your experiences can't be the only thing that color your worldview. You know, it's a very narrow perspective to have. So even getting older, like when I was early teens and stuff like that, I would, it might have been frowned upon or whatever, but I would start reading like Eric Jerome Dickey and Omar Tyree, Sister Soldier, those types of books, even like Donald Goines, Iceberg Slim, all that type of stuff. And it kind of, some of that stuff helped color my later phases in a way that may have been, uh, like, maybe you don't want your kid reading Iceberg Slim too early, but it lended perspective. And I was at a point where, like I said, I was taken from Abiquiu, New Mexico, and then I was dropped into the hood. And then so I'm reading stuff that's like trying to help me catch up. You know what I mean? Like like how like the vernacular, like uh, just some of the cultures, the do's and the don'ts. Some of the things that are cool, some of the things that aren't. So no matter what you're into, no matter what you're concerned about, whatever you're curious about, there's a book for it. And as I matured, then my reading palette kind of did the same thing.
I'm glad. Oh my goodness, you said the thing that I definitely tell a lot of people that I engage with when it comes to getting those books for your children. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, it wasn't rocket science what you said. Your mom was like, "Oh, you like basketball? Okay, we're about to get you some basketball books." Like, and that's the attitude that we have to have, when it comes to reading. It's like, don't equate it with this, oh my goodness, reading is this thing that you have to be this astute person, and you have to make sure you're reading all of these high level books to really say that you're reading. I mean, even with
Uh,
you, mentioning all those types of books, even when I think I read that in the book, right? You said Donald Goins. Now I had never heard of him. I heard of Iceberg Slim, but then when I
okay.
looked up Donald Goins, I said, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, okay. So he got, his, his a lot of things he wrote about, rather his ideas from Iceberg Slim, So I was like,
Exactly.
oh, okay. I'm like, but
Uh,
again, that I love the fact though that you have that mindset, in terms of, okay, you need to just really take reading to a level where you're not just limiting yourself. You have to, try out, read different things, you know what I'm saying? So it can broaden your horizon so that you don't have a limited view. So that right there is dope. Again, for those of you who are listening, Real Reading Talk. Again, my guest is Brother Masood Abdul-Haqq. Okay. And he is an author and an executive, a speaker, husband, father, all just great stuff. Okay. And I'm going to show the book right here. Bam. All right. The Giants in My Midst. Okay. The Giants in My Midst, you guys. This book, I highly, highly recommend that you all get it. People, I just love to read about folks who are unafraid when it comes to letting it be known, okay, this is me. This is my story. This is where I come from, my mistakes, my trials, tribulations, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever. But this is who I am. I own my ish. And and this is what it is. So I
right.
appreciate you for that. So I want to ask you though, in turn, how did you go about your writing process in writing this book? Was it a thing where, and how long did it take? Were you just like every little thing that came to your mind that you thought was significant, you would just have a notebook with you and write it down?
Mhm.
How was your process?
Yeah, so it actually started. It started February 1st, 2020. Um, Logged on to the internet, logged on to like Facebook and Instagram, and I started seeing these black and white photos of Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Frederick Douglass. And it was Black History Month. And I was like, oh, here we go again with the black and white, you know, same old regurgitated quotes. We love these people. Don't get me wrong. We honor, respect, love these people, but there's so much more to Black history than just these people who've been curated and homogenized for people's appetites and said, I have a dream and you know all this stuff. You just kind of give us a little box, put it in black and white. It's to me, it speaks to the psyche in a bad way when you suggest that the only notable or noteworthy or historic figures were all 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. It kind of is devoid of hope. It's like, yesterday was history. Last year was history. 10 years ago was history.
Right.
So if we're talking about Black History Month, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of these black and white photos. I'm tired of the same old stories. I'm gonna write an essay a day, every day during this Black History Month about people in my immediate circle who I feel should and will last. Their stories will stand the test of time. And I did that. So each day, I didn't interview anybody. I didn't consult with anybody. It was just all my experiences. I told a story about this person, and then I just used the hashtag the Giants in my midst and Black History in the making. And so the first day people were like, "Oh, what is this? What is this?" Second day was, I think Amir Suleiman the second day, and his blew up. I tried to use different writing styles and different approaches and just kind of show off a little bit of the dexterity in my ability to write. Like I was kind of poetic when I was talking about the poet. I was kind of academic when I'm talking about the academic and stuff like that. But um, it really caught on. By the middle point, it was, we were seeing, I don't know, like 5 to 10,000 impressions on every post on all the platforms. So we got through the 28 days, and we had like a celebration type of thing, at the end, and that celebration, it was like a live. And that thing, it had like over 50,000 impressions online. So there was like a really, really strong demand for me to make that series into a book. And I got back to my regular life, but then people were still talking about it March, April, May, June, and then finally toward the end of 21, I was like, all right, fine, I'll make it into a book. So I compiled all of the essays together, and I was like, this is only like 60 or 70 pages. Like, I've always assumed I would be an author. At some point, I always knew I wanted to write books and, have my stories told on the big screen and all that kind of stuff. So I like, but if I'm gonna put something out, this isn't gonna be my first work, 60 pages, 70 pages. Like, okay, they were giants. Okay, they inspired you, but they inspired you from what to what, right? So honestly, like, I underestimated the publishing process a little bit because as soon as I started compiling, I was like, oh, this should be nothing. I'll just add a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'll have a book, I'll put it out. And that's when I did the pre-sale, like December of 2021. And I was all out there. I was like, oh crap. Once I actually got into it, and I was like, I can't put this out um, if it's not fleshed out enough. There had to be the foundational, and the book, honestly, it ended up being 80% of it. It was the foundation, right? Like, because as a story person, you know that there has to be an arc, right? There has to be a from what to what. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the things? Like, who cares if this person is inspiring if you're not telling me how they inspired you or who they inspired? Like, who are you in the first place? So it took, after I did that compilation and I saw that this isn't the book that I wanted to write. This isn't enough. It took me about a year. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background on me, I own a pediatric clinic, well, two of them, with my wife. She's a doctor. I'm the business person, operations manager, that sort of thing. So that's a grind right there. We've got three children. All of them are athletes. Two of them are all American type, track stars and AAU basketball, all that kind of stuff. I'm the free one. She's a doctor. She's locked in, so she's got her schedule every day. I'm the one that's kind of ripping and running all the time.
Right.
So we've got that. I'm the chairman of my Masjid Moment, Oklahoma City. We're in the middle of a $6 million building project. I'm kind of the tip of the spear on that. A lot of paperwork, a lot of just, politicking, shaking hands, kissing babies, that sort of thing. Just dealing with the day to day of helping to run a community. And then I'm the chairman of CARE Oklahoma, the Council of American Islamic Relations. Do a lot of work with the Capitol. We do a lot of work with just, improving the experience of being a Muslim in Oklahoma. So all of that is like my daily life, right? And so I had to figure out ways to write in between all of that. And it helped, my wife and I, we added an extension to our house. We added a sunroom to our house. And that sunroom kind of became like a little bit of a sanctuary where it was like, if I'm in here, if I'm on my computer, just leave me alone. You know what I mean? I had to put myself on a regiment, and really outline everything, and see, how I could tell a story, because I'm just big on, the arc. And so the people who were in the book, in the series, they're not all in the same order. They're in the order that makes the most sense for the arc of the story now. And the people who came before, the foundational, those chapters are much longer. I'm sure you noticed, like, part one takes up probably half of the book.
Yep.
Part two takes up probably 25% of the book, and then part three is just the series. It's like a celebration, and that's the way it came together. But all in all, 10 to about 10 months, 10 or 11 months, until I was like, okay, I can put my name on this and I'll be proud of this.
Wow. Wow. I'm tripping on how you waited till almost about 20 something minutes into the podcast to talk about all of that great stuff right there. All of the chairman of this and helping build it. I'll sitting up there like, you and your wife got the clinic. Man, I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. But I'm just like, okay, like what? But this is what our people need to hear. This is what they need to hear, brother. I'm like, you doing a damn thing, you and your awesome wife. And in fact, I'm actually on the part where you talk about your wife and how you met her and all of that stuff. And I'm just like, oh, it's just so awesome, man. It's just so cool. You know what I'm saying?
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, so she like, yeah, you'll see. I ain't gonna spoil it for you,
I know, right? I'm like,
but
I'm intrigued. But no, but yeah, but I'm just like, again, just your journey and how you just talking about in terms of, I love the fact how you said your mom kept y'all, well, mom and dad kept you all in the library, that right there. These are simple things once
that was
again.
my mom. That was my mom, man. Don't shit. She
Oh, I'm
ain't
sorry.
sharing that. She ain't
Oh,
sharing that. She
okay,
ain't
okay,
sharing
my
that.
fault. Ooh, I'm sorry. All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. So your mom made sure that you all were at the library. And that right there is just so key, man. That is something that I just would love to see, our parents, understand. And I'm of course you got folks who they already get it, right? You got people who they already know. They're like, okay, yeah, that's what I do. I make sure that I have my kids at the library. This is, a free, this is the public university, right? Free university. You go in there, you get
Mhm.
pick out any book or whatever the case may be. But now it's just it's definitely a different kind of energy. Like even when you go into the libraries now, and especially after the pandemic, you have the energy of, you don't really have a lot of the attendance, I should say, that you
Mhm.
would see back in the day, just like you
Right.
said, when you were growing up, when I was growing up or whatever, but these are the things in which folks need to get back into, making sure that
Definitely.
you have your children to have them go to the library. I mean, period, point, play. But of course, what we fighting against though. We fighting against what?
Yep. Those
Devices. You know
devices.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
So for us with our kids, it started, before they could even speak. Like, we would make sure we read to them every night before we put them to bed. And I even rock them to sleep and we like read. I got this really cool book. I think it was like Nelson Mandela's favorite folk tales or something like that. And it's got a bunch of stories. It's like African folk tales. But he picked it and curated the book, and they used to love that. And you have to be expressive and demonstrative and trying to read it and make it exciting for them, because if you're not excited about it, then you can't expect them to be excited about it. But they wanted to be able, so they wanted to be able to read to me, after they were almost 2 years old. It was like, I want to read you a story, so we started with that. So but definitely the library, it's interesting because it's almost unbelievable, the concept, when you really think about it, like all of this information for free. And now they're making it so lenient where they don't even have like late fees here. They're making it very accessible.
yep.
And then you still see half the people in there are just homeless people, you know.
God.
So it's like it's sad. And my children, they don't understand it at all. They're like, well,
Yeah.
my book is always there, 'cause-
Yeah.
but it's wild. Um, and to your point, the the devices, that can be a major detriment for our children. So
Mhm.
we have to be digital and analog in the sense that we're
Right.
able to not be naive to the workarounds and all of the temptations that are there for our young children,
Mhm.
understanding that the conversation that you were expecting to have with your child when they were 14 or 15,
Yeah.
you got to have that conversation at 8 or 9 nowadays. Because if you don't give it to them, they're going to get it from somebody else at school who has that device and no regulation, or they're going to come across it. So you got to start teaching that stuff early, 9 years old, 10 years old. You know, you got to start just biting the bullet. It's like, hey, and as soon as
Yeah.
they're able to form those questions, you got to be able to have a real answer for them, because if you don't give them a satisfactory one, they're going to go get it and they'll have access. They'll be able to
Exactly.
go look it up. And if they
Mm.
type the wrong combination in, ain't no telling what might come back.
Mm. Wow.
So you gotta quench that thirst for knowledge. If they're able, if their mind is forming, if it's enough to form the question, then we have to give them a real thoughtful answer, not just oh, I'll tell you when you're older. Like, nah, they're gonna find out later that day
Exactly.
from somebody else.
Yep. And so what you're speaking to is really just us. making sure we're intentional about being engaging with our children, making
Exactly.
sure, even though, we have these devices, obviously. I mean, this is the digital age. This is what we have to do. However, we should make sure that we are, constantly aware of what they are on, what they're watching. You know what I'm saying? Like my daughter, they read something called webtoons. So
Okay.
that's, so she does a lot of her reading online. So it's like these, I guess, some type of animated, stories or whatever,
Mhm.
that's online. So hence webtoons. So, you have different things that, yeah, they can definitely be able to read or whatever online. But again, we still, have to do our due diligence as parents and making sure that we are in tuned, engaging, talking to them, ask, oh, okay, so what was that? What was that about you just read? You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And so they can be like, oh, okay, they're showing. Sometimes they might come out like, why you want to know? Like, I'm saying, what
Right.
like what, but it's like,
Yeah.
but like you see, just having that interest, you know what I'm saying? They need to, have that, you know what I'm saying? So from us.
Mhm.
But what I wanted to now kind of get into is a little bit more about the book, different things. So I wanted you to tell me what was the part of the book that maybe was the most hardest for you to write, if at all.
Yeah. Well, honestly, my mom's chapter
Mm.
was probably the hardest because my mother's very sensitive, and I think that and I even kind of alluded to this in her chapter where you know she I think might be a little like feel responsible or somewhat guilty for some of the things that I went through. As a mother, obviously you want to protect your children, and but there was really nothing that she could have done differently or better. My experiences were what they were. I understood her motives for moving to the city. We needed to meet more Black people. If we would have stayed in New Mexico too long, we probably would have been strung out on drugs or something like that because that's how, when there's nothing else to do, kids have sex and do drugs, right? And so she got us out at the right time. She had the right, thing to move us to Atlanta, be around other Black people, meet our tribe, so on and so forth. But she still sees, the chapters like Kalfani's chapter, Ebro's chapter, um, the things that I was experiencing there, and the rebellion that I had, and just kind of like I was bad, I was, and then she like telling the whole world this and make me look like a bad mom. So and I just wanted to make sure that I handled Umi with care and really speak to the things that were that really make up who she is, and that was to me when I boiled it all down. It was nurture. It was health. She's really big on health, on like giving us sustenance. Like mental health, and feeding our brains, but also like making sure our bodies were well fed and fueled. No matter what we had or didn't have, she made sure that we weren't lacking for quality nourishment, right?
Mhm.
So just crafting that in a way that honored her properly. I mean, how can you truly honor your mother? You know what I mean? Especially if it's not a whole book on her. That was a little difficult for me just because I know that she probably was like, is he going to say something that's going to hurt? She's an empath. She's extremely sensitive. So that one was a little difficult for me. And then, there's two parts in there where I describe, well, three parts in there where I describe like loss, death, unexpected, and obviously that's difficult to come up with. Like those instances, almost put a hard cap, over my feelings in a way. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
nothing. It's like nothing can surprise me, nothing shocks me, nothing saddens me because like you're almost jaded as a child if somebody really close to you is ripped away like that, and then you're like, I don't have high expectations of this world. I don't have high expectations of for my own future at some points. You know what I mean? So do as you will, kind of. You know what I mean? So you just bury it and you just wrap it up, and so I didn't stuff that would happen that's traumatic or whatever. Other even people dying who weren't as close, and it just was like it's just how it is. It's like closed off. So writing about those things in the way that I write, I try to be descriptive and I try to put you in the situation as a reader. Obviously that made me unwrap it and unpack it and do all that stuff again. So, those were, I wouldn't say difficult, but it was like, and then I didn't want to make it where it was like make somebody put the book down, like, okay, this is too much. You know what I mean? I want it's still an honoring type of thing. The whole book is about honoring what was great about somebody, extracting a principle from each one of these people. And only one of the three that I talked about were actually a chapter, like as a giant. But one of the fun things about the book for me was that I think that I advertise it as 40 giants, but there's only 37 chapters or something like that.
Okay.
So it's like an exercise of like, who are the hidden giants? You know what I mean? Like there's people that are mentioned that don't have their own chapter per se,
Okay.
but it's like for the reader to decide like, okay, who are these other people? Like I'll give one like from my chapter when I was 6 years old and I fell into a well, and somebody pulled me out of the well, but there's no chapter on them, and in fact that whole section, that person was kind of like overlooked the whole time. I don't
Mm.
know if you noticed that, but
Mm.
it's like she lost in the race. She was a tattletale. She was this and that and that,
Okay.
but she saved my life.
Look at that.
No big deal. She just saved my life real quick.
Wow.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's little
Mm.
nuggets like that I think that it'll make it a good second, third, fourth time read for some people. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But just hidden giants. I don't even know where the question was anymore. I'm just
No,
talking, but
yes, no. Well, I asked, you answered the question. I asked what was the hardest,
yeah.
chapter, for you to write. And, when you talked about just one of the things I will say, man, your mom, when you said that she was not about y'all eating no sugar and
Mm-hmm.
eating all that healthy stuff all the time, I was just like, that is super dope. Now I am definitely pro healthy. I'm always trying to have my kids eat, the blueberries, because that's my thing. Blueberries, avocado,
Mm-hmm.
nuts, all that. But
Right.
I don't shy away from the sweets. Okay. So I'm like, I'm that mom who's like, okay, all right. So after dinner, everybody you got your vegetables. Okay. So what you want for your treat? Hot chocolate or this, whatever,
Yeah.
I'm that
Well,
mom.
I think that there is a need for balance, because when I got out on my own, I was sugar king, you know what I mean? Because it was like I could just do whatever I want. Like
Right.
I could go to the grocery store, I could literally just buy anything. So
Mm-hmm.
then I had dental issues and all that stuff. So yeah, I think moderation, like I said, that's part of it. It's like it's um it's a great foundation, but then we tweak based off of what we know what the results were, because it's just like a science project. You know what I mean? It's like you have a hypothesis. Like I think that if I don't give my kids any sugar, that they'll be extremely healthy their whole lives.
Right.
Like 90% of that is true, but then now I know that, hey, if you deprive them of it 100%, then they can become sugar addicts when they have no regulation on it as young adults, right? So moderation, so that's part of what I'm saying. Like, second generation has a responsibility to learn from their upbringing and then improve that. So if the first generation got it 75% right, then it's our job to make it 85, 95% right, and we just got to keep tweaking it until we get it all the way right.
Exactly. And you made me think about something. I wish I can't remember. I'm quite sure you'll remember. You said something in terms of disciplining the children. You said something about pretty much, when we're going too hard on them. And you said
Mm-hmm.
something about it could be criminal at worst. You said, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that right there, that always stings to me, because of the fact, number one, that's one of the reasons why I had said personally, This is a few years ago, actually. So it wasn't like I had got this epiphany, when I first started having children. This had to happen after I realized that going too hard on your children, especially in the Black community, we know
Mm-hmm.
that we grew up hearing about, yeah, you beat that ass, what I'm saying,
You're right. Exactly.
you give it to them, what I'm saying, you break them down so they understand that they're not going, number one, they're not going to challenge you. And a lot of it stems from, I don't want you to get hurt out there in them streets, especially for our boys engaging with the police, you know what
Right.
I'm saying. So that whole aspect of, I'm going to tear you up because I'm trying to save you from really getting beat up out here,
Yeah.
in the police,
Yeah, I don't subscribe to it at all, at all. It didn't
yep,
work for me.
lesson.
It didn't work for me because it just made me more rebellious. It made me more sneaky. It made me
Yep.
better at lying, better at hiding
Mm,
stuff. It made
mm,
me, just not trust, that that person had
yep,
my best interest at heart. I'm like,
yep,
it's enough going on out here. Why do I have to, I'm 5 minutes late for a curfew. Now I'm getting beat with, what I mean, with an
yeah,
object. Like
yeah,
what, there's no way you can convince me that that's from a place of love. Like
yeah,
it's a practice that came from slavery. And it's
yep,
one of the ones that I was like, I'm not continuing this. You want to talk about preparing somebody for dealing with the police or whoever, like teach them how to speak, like teach them how to act. Like the worst thing that I could do to my sons right now
mm,
is tell them that I'm disappointed in them. Like that would break them down more. If I just punch them or whip them or something like that, then it just makes them mad at me. It doesn't make them reflect on what they did or anything. But if I'm like, man, I'm disappointed in you, and they're like, dang, you know what I mean? Like, what can I do to get back to being in your good graces? Because we have a good relationship. Like we have a trust. We have a rapport. So if you're not, you have to build a rapport with your children so that they care whether you rock with them or not. It's like, and I have this thing that people always disagree with me on, but I tell them that like, um, what is it? Unconditional love is the lowest form of love, right? Like unconditional love is just baseline, standard, stock edition, like no bells, no whistles. It's like I love you because you're my mom. I love you because you're my dad. I love you because you're my kid. Like that's it. Like if I met you and you weren't that, maybe I wouldn't love you. Maybe I wouldn't like you. Maybe I would want to get far away from you, right? Um, I want to get past the unconditional part, and we want like a true love, like rapport, support, empathy. Like is almost a higher level than love. Like what I mean. When it's on top of it, I want my kids to like me too. You know what I mean? Like it's not that I'm trying to be their friend, but if if they go through an experience at school and their first thing is, I can't wait to talk to my father about this,
mm,
then I'm winning. But if their first thing is, oh snap, like I can't tell, I gotta hide this, or let me delete this from my computer, or delete this from my phone, or let me go have this and build this rapport with some girl or boy or teacher, or then you're setting yourself up for them to lean on people outside of your family. You want the family to be the place where everything is discussed, everything is comfortable, everything is available to them, including an ear, including empathy, sympathy, all those things. But as soon as you just beat somebody because they make a mistake or
mm,
say the wrong thing, I mean, like I remember being a kid, like hormones is no joke. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna have your moments where you're frustrated, where you're lazy. You're gonna have your moments where you're, all of that. So I definitely wanted to speak to that in the book, and it's just, I think I've mentioned it, like in my relationship with my father. Obviously, I think I said it. It's like daddy issues are the root of all issues, right? And I'm grateful that ours are just like differences of, you know, uh, philosophy. I was talking about how he kind of adopts other cultures into his interpretation of Islam, and I don't. I think being black is lit. I love it. I don't
like,
want
yep,
to. Yeah,
okay,
I don't want to pretend that I'm from somewhere else just because
mm,
I'm Muslim. Like that's not Islam. Like that's culture.
yep,
And but even in my brother's chapter, it's kind of a continuation of my father's chapter because they're so similar. And my experiences with them in Detroit and all that, um, it's just that corporal punishment plus, that harsh, kick you out of the house, all that kind of stuff. I just said it put a mile wide gulf in between he and I that, we're still working towards closing. It's like, how can you convince somebody that like abuse is love?
Mm,
Like that's
mm.
gaslighting. It's like I'm beating you and and subjecting you to the lowest of the lowest forms of living on earth out of love. Like that just never, it doesn't compute to me. It's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No, and I'm glad you said that. And what I was reaching for was this book here. You familiar with Dr. Joy DeGruy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
post-traumatic slave syndrome. America's legacy of enduring injury and healing. I reference this book a whole hell of a lot on my podcast. When I'm, if I happen to, I see a post and I feel like making a comment, especially if it's something that I see that it needs to really, really be said, in reference to
Right.
our people. I reference that a lot, because of the fact of what you just spoke to is the reason why we defer to that methodology of I'm gonna whoop your ass. I'm
Mm.
gonna smack the ish out of you. Okay.
Right.
I'm gonna do all of these different things to you. Where does that come from? Wait a minute, hold up. That sounds familiar. Oh,
Right.
it's called the slave plantation. It's
Exactly.
called before our ancestors, were dragged, they were being drugged off the shores of Africa, put into those horrible ships. That's where all of that started, that submission.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to submit to me. That
Right.
notion of, I'm above you. You know what I'm saying? And this is how I'm going to treat you, to make it be clear that you're supposed to respect me. So now
Right.
translate that into what we've adopted from our oppressors, that aspect of that oppressive mentality when it comes to our children. What?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? What? You challenging me? What? What I'm saying? All of those
Right.
different things. And just like you said, in terms of, when we do that, unfortunately, either you'll have those who will grow up and say, well, yeah, I got whooped, I'm saying, and I turned out all right. And that's what
Right.
Joy DeGruy talks about. She's like, no, you turned out all right in spite of,
Right.
not
Yeah.
because of. Let's make
Right.
it clear. You know what I'm saying? And these are the words that she said. And that's why I love referencing her, because she is somebody who absolutely knows our people, absolutely gets it, and understands that in order for us to heal, we have to literally be honest. We have to talk about these things and be vulnerable. We
Right.
can't shy away. That's why I said, in my own life, I remember, I grew up with the same toxicity in terms of my parents, all of these different issues. And then I'm being raised with that. And then I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, this is what you're supposed to do, do
Right.
that. And then unfortunately, like you said, you start seeing the repercussions of that. You start seeing, you may have that child who they grow up, they like, okay, yeah, yeah, that's my mom, you know, like you don't want your kid to just feel that way about you, especially a mom.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And even, even being a dad, you don't want your child to look at you in that way. You want them to like you,
Right.
them to like you. You don't want them. You don't want them to be like, yeah, I love you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but if I didn't have to be around you, I wouldn't. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like,
Yeah, we see it so much. Like the people who had the strictest households, right? The people
yeah.
who had the strictest household, when they had a sliver of light, of daylight to
Mm,
go, they were gone and they never
there you
looked
go.
back, right? So I have another kind of theory or analogy that I like to use. It's like at some point you're gonna have to throw your children out there into the world, right? They've got to leave the nest. So how we treat them, how we color their childhood, with their experiences with us inside the house, in the community, so on and so forth, is what determines whether when we throw them, are they going to be a frisbee and just land wherever they land and stay
Mm,
there forever, or are they going to be a boomerang and come back and bring something good with them? So it's like, how do we make more boomerangs? Because when I grew up, there was 50 of us. If I go back to my same community, it might be, I don't know, 5, 10 that are actively trying to uphold what we were about when we were younger. And it's unfortunate because it impacts every level of our society. We have so many unmarried sisters who are more than eligible. We have so many um, Maliks and Fatimas out there who don't know the first thing about the beauty of our religion. They only know that they bum ass daddy used to be Muslim. And he gave him this Arabic name, and that's it. And so, we see that across the country. It's not just one neighborhood, one community. We see it all over the place. So it's like you can talk until you blue in the face, but it's action. It's like how you treat people, how you make people feel. That's the only real dawah. You know what I mean? Like the people who go around trying to teach you about what they believe, it doesn't matter. Like the only thing that they're going to see is how you make them feel, how you treat other people. It doesn't matter how eloquent you are, how quickly you can reference some point in some book. I don't care nothing about your book if your character is off, if your actions are off. So the only way that you can get somebody to be interested in anything that you're about is by just being a good person and treating people well, and that starts in your home, right? So
Wow. Wow, you dropped it right there. I mean that's key, relationships. Relationships are the foundation, in any and everything that we're trying to achieve and where we want to see success. And that's something, and I even translate that to even when I tell parents when they are frustrated when their children are struggling with something like reading. Don't get upset at them and don't try to, this word, what I'm saying? You just said it. You know what I'm saying? And going off or whatever the case may be, because for real, when you do that, they're really not going to produce. They're going to freeze up and then they're going to forget anyway, because that's just, your brain responding in that way,
and you weren't
so
reading to them when they were little.
thank you. And that's, again,
Like
like you
people
said,
just really get embarrassed because of how it might make them look.
right,
But it's like, did you do the work up front? Did you foster a love of reading?
right.
Did do you make it to where they're okay with making a mistake in front of you?
Mm,
Because if they're tense, if they're afraid of making mistakes, they're gonna make a ton more mistakes. That's just anything,
yeah,
So yeah, no, it's definitely important.
yeah. Well, what I would like to do, since we're definitely, I know you're a busy brother, you know what I'm saying. So I'm not going to hold you up too much longer. I just wanted to say this particular quote. I actually had posted it when I was posting it. I was reading your book, and I like the quote that you said. It's not enough to know what you're against. You must know what you are for. Can you please, speak to that quote?
Yeah. Well, as Black people, we know our history. We know that it's normal and natural to have a healthy distrust of the systems that have been designed to keep us where we've been for the last 400 years. So it's easy to kind of fall into this idea of just I'm anti-government, I'm anti-establishment, I'm anti-bank, I'm anti-secular schools, I'm anti.
Mm,
That's fine if you're anti those things, but you can't just subtract without adding. You have to, if you subtract, you have to replace because we're always looking for balance, right? So if you're anti, then what are you pro? And in fact, you shouldn't even frame things as being anti. You should focus on what you are for. Because if you tell me that I'm for private schooling, that's a hell of a lot more positive than saying I'm anti public schools. And if you're always harping on what's wrong with something, then people are going to be like, oh, here comes so and so, negative, bringing stuff down.
mm,
Instead of saying, this is what makes private school, this is what makes homeschooling so great, this is what makes our private school, this is what community schools so great. You're a proponent instead of an opponent all the time. It attracts more. It speaks to the highlights of something instead of the lowlights. And humans, we're just naturally predisposed to go toward light, to go toward positivity, to go toward things that make us feel good, positive, reaffirming. So if being aware of the Tuskegee Project and Jim Crow and the slave trade, transatlantic slave trade, all these things. We absolutely have to be aware of these things. We have to understand what we're facing. But as leaders, as teachers, as parents, we have to be able to internalize that knowledge and use it to fuel a positive reflection of that thing. Like, what's the opposite side of that? What's the positive? And focus on that. And whenever you lead with the positive, it attracts. If you're negative about everything, then it's going to detract, or it's going to attract more negative people, and you guys ain't going to get anywhere. You're going to talk yourselves into a circle. You're going to say, yeah, let's get mad, and then stuff isn't going to get done. People rally around positivity. So it's not enough to know what you're against. You must also know what you're for. And being for something is 1,000 times more powerful than being against something.
Wow. Wow. That right there, y'all heard it, brother Masood. I mean, dropping the jewels, and that's what this book is about. That's what I get from it. I get jewels, I get wisdom, insight. One of the things you made me think about in that quote, I had listened to a lecture by Sheikh Taufik some years ago, Rahimullah, and in the title of it was, "You must resist and counter, resist and counter." So just like what you just said, yeah, you resist all of the things that are negative, that are not helpful, but you got to counter it. So it's not enough, and we know definitely in the Muslim community, we grew up with different things like, obviously you can't have girlfriends, you can't have boyfriends, right? You know what I'm saying? Those types of things. But I even like the part you said in the book in terms of creating a space for our young people to interact in a way where they are getting to know each other in a halal, which is lawful, way, so that when they are looking for marriage, that it's not something where they're awkward. They're not dealing with this. I don't know how to talk to her. I don't know how to talk to him. I don't, and all of those types of things. So I'm glad you even said that in the book. I mean, you drop jewels, brother. I'm gonna have you leave. I'm gonna have you please leave us with 3 things that you would advise our community to start implementing in their lives to develop that culture of literacy in their households. What are some 3 things,
Yeah. First, it always starts like what you said. I mean, with the screen time. If whatever your screen time is, like your average screen time, if you don't even have an idea of how much time your family is spending on, series, on movies, on just browsing, on whatever. Like, first of all, we need to understand what that number is. I think a lot of times when people find out what their number is, they'd be ashamed, right? If there's a lot of ways you can count it, but whatever it is, you can cut it in half to start. If you're spending 20 hours a week as a family on those screens, like, first of all, you have to understand that that's how much time you're spending, and then make a conscious effort to cut it in half to start out with. So if you're spending 20 hours a week, cut it down to 10 hours a week. And then you have to say, with these 10 hours, this is what we're going to do as a family. This is what we're going to do as individuals. These are some of the goals that we have, because now we have 10 hours that our mind was being occupied with someone else's thoughts, someone else's agendas, someone else's, we're putting money in someone else's pocket. So we have to hone in and rein in screen time, understanding what it is for your child to be on TikTok. What is it for your child to be on Instagram? What are they seeing out there? There's this whole culture of Finstagram, like the fake Insta, where kids they have secret accounts that their parents don't know about. And who is who is your child with? Who's in your child's mind? Like, who's sleeping with your child as they ruminate on what they took in that day? As we know, sleeping is when your mind processes everything that it experienced while it was awake. So who's sleeping with your child? Like, we have to understand these things. So that would be the first thing, like really having a scientific approach, a mathematical approach to your screen time, and I guarantee you can cut it in half and figure out different ways to use that time as a family. The second thing is, we have to be um, we have to be intentional about being around other good people, other good families. Like, the community aspect is kind of fading because of a lot of different factors. If you're around a church or if you're around a mosque, then it's easier to be a part of community life. But now people are moving out to suburbs. We've got gentrification happening. We've got masajid closing, all these different things. There's a lot of different factors. But we still have to be intentional about putting our families around other families, kind of to the point that you made about the need for our children to be able to know how to interact with each other and with the opposite sex, all those different things. We've got to be able to do things that aren't just academic, they're not just quote unquote religious, but they're just really about community building. Like, we have to have spaces for young people where they're safe, where they can express themselves. We have to be less judgmental. We can't kick people out. Like, it's not our responsibility to discard of people and to condemn people and to label them and keep that label on them forever, you know. But being around each other, knowing each other, it helps with that, because now, and I kind of talk about it in the book a little bit. It's like, you, a mom and a dad, they're just two people with their experiences, with their preferences, all that sort of thing. That doesn't mean all their kids are gonna just be 1 plus 2. Like, I'm half mom, half dad. I'm 75% mom, 75. You might have a kid that's 12% mom and 3% dad. So where are they gonna find familiarity with the rest of the 85%?
Right.
That's where the outside circle comes in. You might have an uncle or a community member who they're 50% of that person. Like, oh, I'm interested in the things that this person is interested in. So now there's a trusted person that's close by. They can even model themselves after. They could use as a mentor. You don't even have to say anything, because like in this book, like, a lot of these people, they had no idea until they read it. Like, I had no idea that I impacted you this way. And I'm
Wow.
like, yeah, I was just watching you. I
Wow.
just peep game. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so putting yourself in situations where it's good families, we have to figure out more ways to do that. And then finally, I would say that there has to be an emphasis on mental health right now. I saw a post today. It was really strange. It basically said that like, therapy is for girls, and there's a crisis of people saying that mental health is necessary. And I was like, whoa, that's interesting. Like, we own a pediatric clinic, so we're kind of like ground zero for what is coming next in our society. We see
Yep.
8-year-olds who are hearing voices, and 9-year-olds with suicidal thoughts, and 14-year-olds who have gender identity issues and all these sorts of things. And it's some of it, you can just point to conditioning, but it doesn't change the fact that it's actually happening. It's real. Like, we have communities that tend to just condemn and throw away, cast aside. You go to a community, and then they're speaking so flagrantly about a group of people, and you might have a young person in that crowd, in that audience, that is struggling with some of those things.
Yeah.
So if they're struggling with it, you just eliminated them from your group. That it's like, okay, and let's just be frank. Okay, so we're talking about homosexuality, right? And the whole LGBTQIA plus community, they lead with what appears to be love, right? Like, welcoming, happy, come here, give me a hug, all that sort of thing.
Right.
So if from a child standpoint, if I'm being faced with, if this is my reality with this group, and then this other group, and I don't know, I might be like them. I don't know what's going on with me. I've got hormones, I've got feelings. People are calling me this. They're saying I'm effeminate, whatever. I'm not sure. But that guy right there, he's definitely my friend. He's friendly to me. He's nice to me. I trust him. Whatever. he speaks nicely. And then over here, they're calling him a faggot. They're calling my friend slur. So I don't like them because they're intolerant, they're mean, and I don't think he's a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a kid in the middle of this, like now this person has pushed you all the way over there.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, hey, we understand that these things are happening. We understand that there's this temptation. We understand that, there's a lot of indoctrination going on. We know that, some of these larger corporations have agendas. All that can be true. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we toss aside the human element of dealing with this very young person who's confused, and we don't want to push them away straight into the arms of the people who we say we're against.
Right.
Right. Because again, the love or the appearance of love is going to always be more attractive, especially to someone who's as vulnerable as a child who's confused and is away from the home 8 to 12 hours a day, outside of your purview, you don't know what's going on with them. You ask them, how was your day today? Oh, it was cool. Okay, you driving your car. That's it. You don't know that they've been propositioned. They've been, you know what I mean? Like all kind of stuff going on, but if you don't have that rapport with them, that relationship with them, they're just internalizing it, and you could be pushing them further and further and further away. So understanding like what our society is like for real, like what it really is, and not what we want it to be or what it was, 1400 years ago. We've got to meet people where they are. And then the dawa is going to be our actions and how we connect with individuals.
Wow, and I like how you put everything, because really what you're speaking to is, again, when we're trying to nurture and foster that culture back again in terms of reading and literacy, and making that a highlight in our homes, we have to have the relationships. They have to be there of love and of kindness and feeling validated, making sure that we are raising our children to have sound mental and emotional health. Those are things that will help contribute to our children even wanting to read. We can't, because when we start just making it seem as though, oh, okay, well, you're going to have to do this and that or whatever, but they are surrounded by all of this trauma, just like Dr. Joy talked about the trauma, then it's going to be harder for them to even do something as simple as even wanting to pick up a book. Like, man, please, I ain't trying to, what I'm saying, forget all that. I'm saying? I'm trying to see what's over here popping. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate all of that. That was very, very insightful. Oh my goodness. What book are you currently reading now?
Well, I'm entering into a new phase of my career, as an author and a speaker. I mean, I've been a speaker, but obviously having a book, it kind of raises the platform a little bit. I've got a book tour coming up. So I'm actually reading a book called Speak Your Way to Cash by Ashley Kirkwood.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to learn how to, best monetize this next phase of my career. And I'm also reading Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell.
I've heard of him. Okay.
Yeah, Gladwell is good to me because I don't understand. He turns out these thick books in such a short turnaround, but he's a sociologist that, his perspective is always interesting to me. I don't necessarily always agree, but he has an easy flowing writing style where you almost forget that it is in fact academic. He incorporates story and things like that. So yeah, those are the two that I've, as readers, you're always reading like 8 books at a time.
That's me.
So
literally.
I saw the prompt. I was like, let me just talk about these two. But for any writer, there's 2 books that I would recommend, and that's The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. It's like a quintessential to talk about that story arc and that's there. And then The Writer's Journey, forgot the author, but it's actually kind of based off The Hero with 1,000 Faces.
Okay. And these are for writers. These are for people who are interested in writing books.
Yeah, people who are interested in writing in general. Like it could be story. It's just this kind of like story has been, like once you understand the structure of story,
Mm.
Like you'll see it in every single story that you love.
Mm.
And it's as old as time. You know, it's like the 3 act, you know, kind of foundation, reformation, inspiration, that kind of thing.
Wow.
It's there. Like no matter what they call it or frame it, you know, it's always
Repeat
you
it
know, like
again for our listeners. Say it again. I didn't hear it
well,
explained. Mhm.
it's like you drop somebody into the story,
Okay.
into somebody's life. So you
Hmm.
see how they live, and then there's like a call to action, like some event that changes this person's whole world,
Hmm.
that makes them have to embark on a journey.
Okay.
And then you know they there's all kind of climaxes and obstacles in the way that prevents them from reaching their goal. It's in every single movie, right?
Oh yeah, of
And
course. Right.
you
Right.
know what I mean. And then there's like this big turning point, and then there's a climax, and then finally like a resolution.
Hmm.
But like Joseph Campbell, he kind of is one of the first ones I think that put it in book form. And that book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, I think it probably sparked hundreds of other books on story, but they
Mm.
always refer back to that one.
Okay, that's what's up. I'm glad you dropped that because I wrote that down so that I can make.
I
Oh,
actually have them right here.
oh,
So,
nice. Oh, good.
is
Oh, okay. Oh, good. So when people listen to me, they can even do a screenshot because this will be uploaded to YouTube. So, okay. Wow. Wow. Uh-oh. I can't.
The Writer's Journey: Mythic
Okay.
Structure for Writers. It's
Okay.
by Christopher Vogler. And
Mm.
then finally, I don't have it with here, but
Hmm.
um, Stephen King on writing was really good for me.
Wow.
um, because I don't know if you noticed, but like Stephen King, most of his books are just like excellent story, even if you're not into the horror genre or anything
I say
like
I
that. For
never
the
read
first,
none of Stevie. I just saw the movies,
yeah, like the first
you know,
100 pages of his stuff is always like pristine, like just writing, even if you're not into all the extra scary
really.
stuff or whatever.
Wow.
But one of the things that he's like adamantly opposed to, basically like adverbs, anything that ends in ly. He says if you're using ly a lot, there's probably a better way that you could have said it.
Really?
So like,
Wow.
yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah, like so there's a better way that you can say it. And then me personally, I have that same kind of approach to the word that. Usually the word that is unnecessary. If you
Hmm.
really look at it, the word that is often unnecessary. So, and then it forces you, if you take that out, you could either just take it out and it's good, or you could take it out and then you'll be able to tweak it in a way that's more engaging. So those are
Now,
my
see,
tips.
now that's very interesting.
Interesting indeed. See, I
Wow.
took that out.
I see. Oh my goodness. Look at y'all. See y'all writing for there y'all go. Oh Lord. Oh my goodness. That look that that was something else. Oh my goodness.
Just
Wow.
think about it. I mean, it's a good little experiment. And then, you know, obviously you have to use the word
Of
sometimes,
course. Yes.
but a lot of times you don't. So
Okay. All right. All right, Masood. You dropping. Yeah, I'm hearing maybe a writing course or something in the future that create. I don't know. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know.
yeah.
Oh wow. Well, I'm gonna tell you, I really enjoyed this. This conversation was phenomenal. I mean that's how I gotta say it, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you dropped a lot of jewels. You gave a lot of insight, a lot of wisdom, vulnerability. And I'm just going to say, I highly recommend this book for everybody, but I do really highly recommend it for our masjids, in particular, our predominantly Black masjids, because a lot of the stuff that you talk about that we have dealt with in the Black Muslim community, you talk about it in a real unapologetic type of way, and that's what people need to hear, and then just the fact of you being proud of being Black and Muslim, because we know, you know what I'm saying? I mean, this could be a whole nother show, but I'm just gonna say it for real. We know being Black and Muslim, that has been something for a lot of folks where they felt like can I say, can I talk about being Black? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm Muslim. I mean, yeah, it's,
Right.
we've heard, and we maybe even internalized that
Yeah.
thinking. Well,
I
I think,
rail against that thinking in that book.
oh my goodness,
And
man,
I'm ready for all the smoke too.
hello,
I
hello. That's what I'm talking about, okay? For real, man. We are going to be proud about our culture, and that's exactly, what I promote, unapologetically being ourselves. And because again, we only have one judge, and we know that one judge is Allah, one God, and we're all a work in progress. So, and I appreciate, again, like you said, in your book, I mean, you really, for me, I felt like, wow, man, just the comfort, just feeling like, okay, you walk away like, I do, I have a lot of things to offer. I have value. I have worth. My experiences should not be something where, I should be ashamed to talk about. Of course, you're not going to say everything in your life. Some
right.
things you got to keep private for sure.
Right.
But you do got to share some stuff, because you got our young people, they dealing with stuff, and they feeling like they looking at us like, especially if we're trying to look like we this model,
Right.
Muslim, how that is. Or if you're
Yeah.
somebody who's in the Christian faith, you're this model Christian.
Right. Like if you're a saint, I can't
You're saying
relate.
exactly,
Yeah, because I'm not a saint. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
so it's like, show me some vulnerability, show me some real talk, and then I'll listen to you.
Thank you.
And that's all of that came from my experience with mentoring young men and young women, and mainly young men though. Like, and a lot of times, if I'm dressed like this, come in and suit, they look at me like, what this
Right.
thing gonna tell me? You know what I'm saying? And then I start telling them my story, and they like, oh,
Right.
just like me for real. It's
Right.
like, wait, I could be like that. And that's kind of the progression, of it. But if you just come in and you're like, Langston Hughes once said, you know what I mean? I love Langston Hughes, but it's like you got to be able to lead. You got to speak to the ear that's listening, and you got to speak the language of the people. And you can't do that if we're, how you say, and it's like, bro, you
Stop.
from Atlanta, bro. Like, why are you talking like that?
Exactly. Like, come on now. It ain't, it's cool. You know what I'm saying? We can speak our Ebonics or whatever the case, you know what I'm saying, our vernacular, and we good, and we are still who we are. You know what I'm saying? We
Right.
still are practicing Muslim or whatever, faith you are. We have to walk in this space being unapologetically ourselves. And
No doubt.
I really felt that in your book. And again, I just want to say thank you for, accepting the offer to come and be a guest on Real Reading Talk.
No, I
Um,
definitely enjoyed it, and I appreciate you. And looking forward to sharing it once it's out in the public. And just let
yes.
me know if there's anything I can do. Make sure you try to come out. I'll be in Cleveland, actually March 4th. I've got a reading at the first Cleveland Mosque on March 4th. That's a Saturday. So if you can tell your people, we can
Yes.
have some discussion. If anybody has any questions or whatever, I'm welcoming all of that debate and
I
talk and
know
just
that's right.
whatever comes with it. So
For sure. Inshallah, God willing. That sounds dope. Yes, yes, indeed. All right. So I appreciate you again, Masood, and everybody. This was episode 4 of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Seisha. And please remember to implement at least 30 minutes a day of reading in your day. All right. You all take care. Peace. What I tell you guys, that interview was just so refreshing. I just absolutely love talking to Brother Masood Abdul-Haqq. Um, he has a very uh, lively and inspirational story. I mean, his experiences, that he shared in the interview was just awesome. And then when you all get his book, though, and you all read for yourself the different things that he had experienced from, where he lived, how he grew up, all of those different things was just truly amazing. And I was just so glad that, like you all heard in the interview, that he was being vulnerable and authentic and relatable. because that's exactly how I felt in terms of reading the book and having our conversation. So, with all of that being said, now, of course, I got to get into what it is that I do. I am a pre K through fourth grade reading tutor, and the name of my reading tutoring business is ABC Learn Tutoring. So, if your child is struggling with basic reading skills, like for example, if they struggle with phonics or phonemic awareness, being able to connect those letters to the sounds, spelling, basic writing skills, confidence, all of those different things I can help your child with. So if you can just please go to abclearntutoring.com, click on the free reading assessment today. And I do tutor online. So your child does not have to be where I'm at in Cleveland, obviously. All right. So also, I am the founder and executive director of ABC Read. ABC Read, our mission is to develop and nurture a culture of literacy in Black and underserved communities. We've been doing this since 2014, okay? So we've given over 5,000 books to our families, and you all can be a part of this mission by simply going to abcread.org, and you can see all of the different events and things that we've done. And if you would like to contribute to our cause, please do so, because we definitely need it and it is truly appreciated. And I want to give a special shout out to all of our donors thus far. They've helped us tremendously. So we are definitely grateful to them as well, and our funders as well. And also, I have a online store. It's called readingisfreedom.store, and I'm about to show you guys. Let me try to lift up, show the shirt, right? All right. Reading is freedom. Okay. So readingisfreedom.store. Please go and check that out. We just dropped some new Reading is Freedom designs, and we've been getting a lot of rave reviews. People like, "Ooh, I like that. That's sweet. That's dope." All I'm like, "All right, cool. Now just go on and purchase one of them shirts. Go on and get you a sweatshirt. All right, get you a hat that say reading is freedom," okay? Because we definitely have to link our reading to our liberation. And make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Reading is Freedom. We have a multitude of read alouds on there for the whole family. And you know, of course, I'm all about Black people and trying to make sure that we're empowered. So there is a plethora of stories that feature Black people, Black culture, and Black experiences. So please make sure you go to Reading is Freedom YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, leave comments. We definitely want you to do that. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel, ABC Read, okay? So that one is linked to the nonprofit, okay? So, and I want to end with a couple more things, and that is the books that I've been reading, all right? So I'm still reading The Giants in My Midst. And I have to show it now because it's so funny. During the podcast, I was showing the book. I'm thinking that I was being shown. And then when I saw later, when I obviously looking at the recording, I'm looking like, where am I at? I said, okay, ain't no problem. I said, got to do the intro and outro so they'll see me then. The most important person that I wanted you to see was Brother Masood Abdul-Haqq. And so I'm glad you saw him and you heard both of us. So that's very important. So here's his book right here. And I highly recommend you all grab this book. And of course, I referenced Dr. Joy DeGrew's book. I'm always referencing this book. I believe that all of our Black families should have that book in their libraries as well. So those are the two books that I'm reading. And then I want to leave you all with this quote. All right. And so the quote actually comes from Masood Abdul-Haqq. And I got this from his book, The Giants in My Midst. And he said, "It's not enough to know what you're against. You must know what you are for." All right. So you can be anti all you want, but what are you pro? What are you for? Okay. So with all that being said, I hope that you all enjoyed this episode. Make sure that you leave comments. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share all of that good stuff. It's going to be on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all of that. All right. And please remember to implement at least 30 minutes of reading in your day. Everyone take care. This is Real Reading Talk. I'm Miss Seisha, episode 4, season 3. Peace.